another Monday and another classic movie. So without further ado, let's get started, and we are going to look at Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yes, the first ever Indiana Jones movie. Now this one in particular, I find Indiana Jones to just be very classic as when you're talking sort of adventure films, because for the most part, even though they can maybe get a little bit maybe goofy, or they do try to kind of enhance the action a bit, for the most part they still remain sort of very iconic in their own right. So I figured, why not review all three of them? And so that's what I'm going to do for the next 3 Mondays, starting today obviously, which is going to be the first movie. And the first movie was Raiders of the Lost Ark. And this is the first time I've ever watched the Indiana Jones series. I've always heard of Indiana Jones, it's just I never watched it. It kind of came out in the 80s, and I wasn't even born in the 80s. I mean, I was born in the 90s, so it just kind of passed really my radar. I mean, I knew that there was a ride, Indiana Jones, at Disneyland when I was a kid, but I didn't really look into Indiana Jones that much until now, because luckily my grandpa taped all 3 of them, so I can review all 3 of them. So basically the first movie follows the journey of Indiana Jones, who else, the main character, played by Harrison Ford. And I think this was probably one of Harrison Ford's big, roles. I mean, I think big starring roles. Because, I mean, he looks a lot younger than he does now, and, you know, seeing that it was 30 years ago, you can kind of see why. And I think this was really a breakout role for him, as playing Indiana Jones. So having that being said, it basically follows him on this sort of adventure. He is an archaeologist, yes, and a university professor, and he gets called by the American government, and they basically tell him that they want to find the Lost Ark. And you might be wondering what the Lost Ark is. Well, basically it's the Ark of the Covenant. It's a very religious and a very special artifact that's been sort of hidden. I think it's supposed to be said to contain the 10 Commandments that were given to Moses, and the Jewish peoples used it for a big ceremony. It's it's a really big symbol of, I guess, God's sort of order, and it's said to be very mysterious because even to this day we don't know where it is. We have ideas, but archaeologists have never been able to find it. And the reason why the government is sort of getting involved, because again, I think this has to do with the fact, you know, that even in the 1930s, before World War II started, we were still having a little bit of competition, I guess, with Germany. And we wanted to be the ones to find the Ark first in this kind of universe. Because again, this kind of thing I don't think really was ever really happened. I don't think. Yeah, maybe some people in history were trying to chase after artifacts and catch one other country wanted to catch it first. So it's sort of like a moon chase. It's like how we did with the moon chase with Russia. It's a chase to get the artifact. And so basically they think Indiana Jones is up for the job, and he's like, sure, yeah, okay. And he has to have certain clues in order to figure out where exactly the Lost Ark is, and he has a female sort of counterpart called Marion Ravenwood, and she's played by Karen Allen. And basically she sort of has some history with him, and she has already some knowledge about archaeology, and he feels like that she's kind of a key for him to get to the Lost Ark. And so their stories kind of come together, and they sort of intertwine as the plot goes on. And they go to all of these different places in order to get closer to where the Ark is. And you'll notice at the beginning of the film that even beforehand, the Germans were sort of competing with Indiana Jones. In particular, he was on another adventure. Like, the movie sort of starts off with him having another adventure that's unrelated to the plot that's going to end up happening. But it sort of establishes the fact that, you know, this is kind of like a game to find, you know, lost things that are very, very valuable and worth a lot of money. And in particular, this rival is working for the Nazis. He's a German. And he's played by Paul Freeman, and his name is Dr. René Belloc. And basically, he just is trying to get the Lost Ark first, as well. So you kind of see, like, how there's this sort of competition. And basically, the reason why they want the Lost Ark is just because they want to, like, present it to Hitler, and they kind of want to see what potential the Ark has, because again, the Ark is like a really mysterious kind of artifact, and they want to see if they can use it to kind of use it as maybe like a power thing. You know, it's sort of like this unknown kind of, they don't really know its capabilities, but they feel like that they could use it for power and dominance and control. So in order to do this, they have to perform a certain ritual in a certain location, which was done again with the Jewish people way back in the day when the Ark was actually made. But it's said to be a very mysterious artifact, and I could see why Steven Spielberg and why all of the people who worked on this movie kind of decided to go in that direction and decide to pick the Lost Ark as the first, because to this day we still don't know where it is. It's still like one of those lost mysteries, and you'll kind of realize that the Ark is really strange. You will kind of see as the plot moves forward, and for the most part there's a lot of action, there's a lot of fun. Indiana Jones is, again, iconic, interesting character, the one who does everything. He's like the one that just does everything for everybody. Even at sometimes, even though this woman in particular, Marion, she is a strong female lead, even at times she's like, Indy, help me, like, Indy, do this, Indy, do that. And for some reason that kind of frustrated me, because I'm like, he's a little bit busy here. He's trying to, you know, fight this one guy, and you're sitting here complaining and going, Indy, help me. It's like, help yourself. I mean, at some point she does that, and I think that's kind of typical. I think in the next film, the other female lead is she kind of complains a bit too, so that's not going to be so much fun. I did like Marion though for the most part, but I think it's just, they just made her scream Indy way too much, I think. I think they just made her seem like they wanted to make her like this strong, independent woman, and she is, but it's still that whole screaming of, Indy, help me, Indy, do this, Indy, do that, Indy, It's like, okay, if you want to be a strong and independent woman, you don't ask for Indy like 24/7, you know, especially when he has something that's going on, you know. It's kind of, that kind of maybe sucked me from not liking the character as much, because she just, you know, she's independent, she's interesting, she can drink really good, better than the men can, you know, she's tough and all that, but then they make her like scream all the time, Indy, Indy, please help me, blah 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 blah. And I know I may be over exaggerating about that one point, but the thing is, she does it constantly, so it did kind of make me get sucked out in her character. So just something to hint at. It's not that I didn't like her, it's just there's that one part that just kind of annoyed me, because it just kept happening over and over again, and I thought to myself, okay, you're supposed to be the strong, independent woman, and yet you're constantly screaming for Indiana to help you and save you. How is that being independent? So yeah, I mean, I think there's sort of a little bit of a a thing where they kind of didn't really know what to do with her, even though she's supposed to technically be the strong, independent woman, but whatever. But as far as the villain goes, the villain was enjoyable. Paul Feynman, I think, does a good job of, you know, being kind of that Nazi. It's nice to hear the German, because I took German in high school, and it's funny that you don't hear the you don't see like subtitles for when they speak in German, but I know exactly what they're saying, and that's just fun to watch. I mean, for the most part. I mean, I know they're Nazis, but it's interesting to understand and know the language without having to have the subtitles there. And I think it's funny because they sometimes say like cuss words, and I get it, because somebody that doesn't know German wouldn't get it because they don't have subtitles for them. So that's fun. The whole adventure is fun. The plot moves very quickly. This is, I think, one of the more shorter of the Indiana Jones films. It's under 2 hours, so it's pretty kind of just straightforward and just goes with it. It's interesting, like, having the thing with artifacts and stuff. I really like history, and for the most part, I think even at one point the villain was like to Indiana Jones, you know, you have to recognize that this is history, you know, this is something really important, and they try to make that very resignative. But the thing is, you know, history always maybe works, I guess, in mysterious ways. So, and you'll see how this plays out if you choose to watch the film. You'll really see how sometimes the characters aren't really sure of what they're in for. So, for the most part, I think it plays out pretty well. It's a fun adventure movie for the most part. I think it's one of Steven Spielberg's probably better adventure-ish films. I guess the Indiana Jones series is, as well as Jurassic Park. And I don't really know if he really did any other adventure-type-ish movies. I think I like his older films more than I do his, like, recent projects, but for the most part, yeah, this movie is just enjoyable. You know the theme, you know the character. It's pretty much solid in there. And it's funny seeing Indiana Jones be like this kind of awkward type college professor, and then suddenly seeing him change and become a sort of this very tough archaeological hunter, basically. And you might be wondering, how does he, or how is he able to, well, really find the Ark? Well, it's really explained in the plot, but there's also another character that helps them out, who is in charge of, like, archaeological finds and things like that. But you'll kind of see how they all tie into Indiana Jones once the plot moves along. But for the most part, yeah, it has its fun moments. I think really the only thing that really bothered me was just that one part in her character where she, you know, she acts like completely independent one minute, and then all of a sudden she's like really screaming and getting scared, and I don't really know. It's just, it kind of made me suck it out. It didn't make me get so invested in her as much, but for the most part, she was fun. She was funny and engaging, and Indiana Jones is just that character that, you know, has a lot of things. You know, you even like learn like little snippets about him, like, you know, he doesn't like snakes, he has a whip, and, you know, he has all these things that allow him to be really the character that can, you know, try to accomplish things. But, and that's the thing though, he's always the hero. He's always the person that everybody turns to. They always say Indy, 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 Indy. And it makes me feel bad for him, because I'm thinking, okay, he has a job, okay, and you guys are making it really more complicated when you keep doing that. So for the most part, he is probably the one that stands out the most. I mean, at least from what I could get. I mean, Harrison Ford does a good job of being kind of the, you know, rugged adventure man, the one who's, you know, who saves the day. He's pretty much kind of the Superman of adventure, I'd say. It seems like whatever you throw at Indiana Jones, he'll just kind of throw it back at you. And it's funny to see what he does, and how the action scenes, I think, fit really well, especially for the time period, being the 80s and having their limits on technology, what they can do with action. They make everything seem fairly, you know, realistic. I mean, at times, Indiana Jones series, you'll know, it gets a little bit goofy. You think, okay, this really couldn't happen in real life. I think that person would be dead. I think at one point, Marion, she gets hit, like, literally in the back, and, like, when she's falling down into, like, the tomb, with Indiana Jones and where all the snakes are, and literally, I think that the way that she hit her back, I mean, I think that would have, like, instantly killed her. I mean, there's just, like, these little, like, Hollywood discontinuities between, like, reality. It seems like Hollywood doesn't really like to use science that much. So if you're a real science kind of person and you like action that's fairly, like, realistic, don't expect fairly realistic action from the Indiana Jones series. It's just not gonna happen because it's just kind of embedded, I think, within the action kind of genres, that they do push the envelope on reality. Because if they made it realistic, then everything that would move the plot forward wouldn't really necessarily move it so much forward. But for the most part, it's enjoyable adventure. What can I say? I think it's a good start for the most part, but I'm thinking that the sequels are probably gonna either be better, because for me, this one was just, it was okay. I mean, it just felt like, yeah, just basic adventure film. And yes, you have Indiana Jones as the character, but it kind of didn't really feel like it was something like, you know, super grand. At least from my perspective. I tend to don't think adventure films are like the best, but for what it is, it's good. It's good. It has what you want, if you wanted, or what anybody would really want in an adventure film. So if you have not seen the series, like I haven't seen this series, then feel free to check it out. And I'm interested in to see what the sequels bring. I'm interested to see what the other adventures hold, and see if they end up being a little bit better than this one. I'm not sure. I'm kind of waiting on the sequels and seeing what they bring. And I'm only going to do the 3. I'm not going to do the Crystal Skull one, because that came out like years later. These came out within like the 80s, so they do kind of are concise with one another. And then the Crystal Skull just kind of, I think, stands out on its own, just because it's just been so long since they made an Indiana Jones movie. So for me, I probably am not going to just do that one just because for the most part, the 3 of them are just really compacted together. It would be like me doing a review of, I don't know, the Lord of the Rings series, and then all of a sudden The Hobbit comes out and I review that. I don't think I'm going to do that, because again, I think for the most part, the way that they show the Crystal Skull, it's taking place in a completely different sort of time period than in the 1950s, which is where the Crystal Skull basically takes place. So I guess that's really all I can say about this film. If you like adventure, if you like journey, I mean, I really liked when they went through different things. But I think with the increase maybe with technology, and I think Steven Spielberg and, you know, those people his people could do something better. I think this was a good starting point for the series, but I don't really know if it's going to be the better one out of the other two. So, I mean, I guess I'll just have to see, but that's, I think, all I can say. Any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to answer them. And until next time, bye-bye, everybody.